And a very good afternoon. Welcome to what is going to be a Tuesday preview of racing at Southwell. Back over the jumps again. 9 race card. I think a 10 race card, I tell a lie. 10 race card because the last race has been split into 3 divisions, which is most unusual, but they've got that many entries for the low grade handicap that finishes the card off that it's been split 3 ways. And 4 chases on the card, which is also quite nice. And they kick off at 12:15 with a 2-mile novices handicap chase, which looks a pretty winnable event to me. I can't really fancy the top one. Knockamore Boy, don't like him. You're calling the 2-horse, it's called Your Assert. Calling your horse Your Assert is just asking for trouble, isn't it? And he looked pretty moderate towards the end of last year. Finished off weekly in a couple of novice hurdles. He might do better going over fences for Donald McCain, but he's not for me. Green or black. Useful enough at this sort of a level over hurdles. I think that mark might be a little bit high, and Neil Mulholland's horse haven't got going yet. Ferrabin is off a very good mark if you go back a couple of years, but for a Dan Skelton horse, he just doesn't win races. He just doesn't win races. I thought he was a short runner over hurdles at times. I thought he got one burst to him. He's a bit more adaptable than that, and a marker 117 tomorrow might be his day. And only might, because he's not the biggest horse, Ferrabin. The bet for me is Shady Oaks here, Charlie Pogson's runner, who, if you sort of wind the clock back to about 18 months ago, probably a bit more than that, he's had 3 goes over fences where basically he gave the game away far too quickly. I mean, you know, if you're talking about getting your horse handicapped. And on his 3rd start here at Southwell, over 2 mile good ground, he got beat 7 lengths by El Terremoto. And at the time that looked like, you know, is that a fluke? It wasn't, because he came out again next time and got beaten 2 lengths in under exactly the same conditions by All Set to Go. And then later on in the season, he let by Vivas at Doncaster over 2-4. All of those runs marked him out as sort of, you know, a decent sort, but he ended up going into handicaps for mark way too high. He started off 129. Now, he obviously found life just too hard. After that run at Doncaster, last December 2018, we've only seen him 4 times. We saw him 4 times last year when he was in a grade 2 at Doncaster, completely outclassed. Then at Fakenham, and that was never going to be his track. And then twice on soft ground at Aintree, and then here again at Southwell. So he's now come down to a much more reasonable mark of 110. And Charlie Todd takes another 5 off tomorrow. And he finally gets what he wants. He gets 2 mile, back on good ground again, at a track that clearly suits him. He's run here, I say, well, more than once. And he gets a tongue tie tomorrow as well, which can only help the situation. It can only help his finishing effort a little bit. So there's only 7 runners in the race. It'll be a win bet for me. He'll either go close or he'll be, you know, he's gone at the game and he's at the back. But I think off effectively, you know, a mark of 110 and I say another 5 off with Charlie Todd. And back on good ground. I think that's the key. He's worth a bet tomorrow. That's followed by a 2.5 mile. I say 2.5 mile. There's added distances again tomorrow at Southwell. I think for 2.5 mile races, you're adding another 174 yards on. So this is 2 mile, 4.5, and another 174 yards. So you're in excess of 2 mile 5 here. Have a look at those tomorrow. Bear those in mind because they are going to change things. 3 mile races tomorrow are another furlong on top, you know, so bear that in mind. Here's another winnable contest, this 12:45. Blue and Yellows looked a weak finisher on more than one occasion, and I think he's takeable on. Hidden Glen is obvious enough in so much as he's a Newland horse that's on a fair mark, but he had 2 goes in chasers last year, admittedly on softer ground, and he's jumping. Even over hurdles, his jumping's not great, and you know he'll be a fairly shortish price, I think, tomorrow, and I'd want to take him on. Capsize is a half brother to, I think he's a half brother, full brother, one or the other, anyway, to Hammersley Lake. He was brought by Hammersley Lake's owner to try his hand with last year, but he didn't really show a great lot, unfortunately. They tried him over fences on one occasion at Huntingdon. Didn't look to be a lot there. Colito's Bay looks just very moderate. Riddlestown will need the run. Cesario wins every other Pancake Tuesday. Scartare will be thereabouts, but again, you're talking about a horse that just doesn't win a race. I mean, he's got his conditions again tomorrow, but he'll be beatable. And the one I thought that might be moderately interesting to try and make all tomorrow would be Hurricane Rita and Conadors. Mark in 97 is fine. He only got beaten half a length off this mark back in October of last year. That was on soft ground, but he handles this sort of ground as well. He'll handle good ground tomorrow, absolutely fine. In a race where I think it's winnable, I think Hurricane Rita's got a good chance of making all tomorrow. If Adrian Heskin can jump her off in front, get those first two fences right, then I think it's game on at that point, because a lot of those in behind, as I say, they've got jumping issues and the like. And Hurricane Rita, she's gone. I ought to add, she's gone. I mean, we haven't seen her since February, but her record off a break is not bad. It's all right. She's won one and been placed a couple of times, so I think Hurricane Rita's moderately interested in that 12.45. The 120 less so, I think. I think in terms of a bet. One sec while I get the race back up again. She just disappeared off my screen. This one is a 3 mile handicap chase. I narrowed it down to 2, and they're probably going to be both towards the head of the market. As You Like, it's obvious enough in so much as, conditions should be fine. The worry would be the trip, because as I say, don't forget it's 3 mile. It's a 3 mile, but it's 3 mile 1. This will be the furthest he's gone. I think he'll get the trip, but it's 5-2. I'd want perhaps a little bit bigger. And I thought maybe Station Master might be the one. Kim Bailey's horses seem to have come back off their breaks, running really well. He's unlucky not to have his last 2 as winners, really. Yevering Bell won pretty easily at Bangor, and Fubar only just got touched off at Market Raisin on Friday. And again, you're talking about a horse here, Station Master, that basically has got his conditions tomorrow. Wants 3 mile and good ground, probably in excess of 3 mile. He will actually appreciate the extra furlong, I think, Station Master tomorrow. He gets a tongue tie for the first time, and he's fallen some £10 in a year. And you look at the ground that he's been running on the last couple of runs. He ran at Ludlow on soft. He wouldn't want that. He ran at Haydock over 3 mile 4 on soft, on good to soft. It's just not really his thing. I think a small field tomorrow, on good ground, 3 mile plus, and the tongue tie on first time. I think at the prices, he'd be the one that I chance. And the fourth of the chasers, this one goes off at 150. It's a 3 mile novices handicap chase. Not a race I have to say that I was particularly in love with. I went through these a couple of times, and it's one of these. I wouldn't be surprised if there's money for the likes of Hardy, first run for Tom Simons. That had fun for David Dennis. David Jeffries has got one in here as well. Go Hard or Go Home. They landed a bit of a touch with that at Hereford. I think it probably wants softer ground, but I wouldn't be certain. Just a race I looked at and I thought, you can make a case for at least 4 or 5 of these, and as such, not my idea of a betting event. Similarly, the novice hurdle that follows. You see what price they make Piano Stairs. He, on the face of it, appears to have been well held here behind Enemy Coast Ahead, but when you watch the replay back, he was sort of making quite nice ground up again, actually, from the rear of the field, when he sort of decided to have a bit of a moment, 2 out and jink one way, and then he basically eased off after that. He might have his own ideas, but he might have half chance if the dead 8 line up and he's a price. Because I think the front two, and what I think will be the front two, are nothing special. I think Medalladoro probably goes off favourite, but he does pull Medalladoro. And one of these days he'll pull himself into the ground. Not a betting race at the moment, but I'll have a look at the prices tomorrow. Similarly, the 255 3 mile handicap hurdle, I couldn't work this out. Just a race where you can give all a chance, and yet at the same time you can put the pan through all 6. It's one of those races. If Hattab wasn't so far out of the handicap, I might have been moderately interested in him as the outside of the field. He doesn't win races, Hattab. I think he's about 1 from 20 odd, but he ran perfectly well here against Sebastian Beach last time out. He should be about cherry ripe now. He's had a couple of runs, one on the flat and that one, to get him right fitness wise, but he's £9 out the handicap. These are his conditions tomorrow. It wouldn't surprise me if he outran his odds, but something will probably prove too good for him, which I don't know. I just say again, not a betting event for me. 325, another novice hurdle where you can. There are some interesting ones. I don't think it's a betting event. There are a couple of interesting ones. Liffey-Dale Dreamer, of course, for Sam England, first run for them. That needs keeping an eye on with a view to the future. It won't be tomorrow, but once they get that handicap, that could be winning a race. And Miss Flying Fox, who's coming back, is a Ben Pauling horse coming back off a win-dot tongue tie on first time. Shaped nicely at Bangor, went third to Vegas Blue on debut, but then Weatherby on soft ground just was all at sea on Hurdle's debut. And I think came out there and the trainer said she got a breathing problem. So I think back on better ground. Yard had a couple of winners on that first day of the season. I think she's more interesting in the few. She's certainly got some improvement to come, I think, once they sort her breathing issues out. And then we come to the three divisions of the handicap hurdle to finish the card off with. Division, all three, of course. I mean, they're all 0 to 100 events. They all look pretty winnable. The first one's probably the most interesting one of the three for me, because it sort of looks the weakest of the three, in so much as I was able to go through and go, not that, not that, not that. And there are some prices up for this already with Hills. And I'm going to take a bit of a flyer here with Metatron's Cube, who I remember seeing back on the flat when Charlie Hills had him. And I really liked him as a physical specimen. I really liked him. I think he went in a couple of eye catches that I wrote up at the time. You're worried with Metatron's Cube is that's the only race that he's ever won, that one for Charlie Hills. But it was on quick ground at Windsor. And I think, again, that's the key to Metatron's Cube. He has to have quick ground. Couple of his runs from over hurdles from last year give him half a chance. But I think what's more interesting is the fact that he's with Sarah Jane Davies now, and she's only had the three horses run since the resumption of racing, and all three have run all right, actually. She had one, I think, on the flat. I'll just get the details back up. She had one at Salisbury, finished 6th of 10. 12 chance, got beaten just over 4 lengths, and then 2 at Bangor on Sunday. She had Secret Melody at 80s and Murray Mount at 12s, and they finished 2nd and 3rd respectively in their races, and both ran okay, both ran all right. So, maybe she's got her horses a bit more forward. I seem to think, and it is only off the top of my head, that she had a couple of winners around this time last year at Utoxeter as well. She is, very much, I think, a good ground trainer. As I say, Metatron's Cube's fallen an awful long way in the handicap now. If you go back to what he's run for, I think it was for Matt Shepherd, at Foss after a break last year, first run, we hadn't seen him since January. He came back in the July, about almost a year to the date, and he ran 5th of 5 at Foss but he only got beaten 9 and a bit lengths. That was off a mark of 110, and then that was in a 0 to 120 race. That was in a 0 to 120. He's now in a 0 to 100 here off, something like a £15 lower mark, and gets his ground. The horse hasn't had his ground for the best part of a year. I mean, he's slogging around good to soft and soft through the winter, not his thing. I think he's interesting enough at 25 to take a bit of a flyer on. Could just be, again, that he's now no good. At the age of 5, he's already had it, but, there are enough plus points there, as I'm sort of pointing out. Run after a break, fresh, good ground, trip will be fine. And the trainer might just be in a bit better form than people are sort of cottoned on. So 25 is Metatron's Cube I'll give a go to. The 430 is near impossible. There's one or two old friends in here. There's definitely races to be won over hurdles with Bartholomew J. He caught the eye a couple of times in novice hurdles. Won at Chelmsford in March. It could be here. Needs it to stay on the good side. Tupsin, definitely races to be won over hurdles. He shaped nicely on more than one occasion in novice hurdles around the West Mids and Wales last year. And again, another one that won on the flat. He won at Kempton February of a mark of 67. So off 96 tomorrow, he's pretty well handicapped. Bit further down, I mean, there's some nice horses in this. It Can Be Done could just improve out of everything that we've seen so far for Dan Skelton. Musical Stardust knows how to win. She's a pretty game sort. This was I thought a harder race to try and pick the winner out of, and as such, I'm sort of quite happy at this stage to pass it by. And similarly, the old Lucky Last. The interesting one, I suppose, will be Jetstream, to see if there's money for that. I mentioned on numerous occasions last year about how this David Jeffries yard like to land a gamble with these sorts, and indeed I think there's one earlier on the card I ought to mention. I think it's called Milford Last. Maybe it's already been, it's only a 7.5 chance. We haven't seen it for 3 years, and the bookmakers are now sort of cottoning on to the fact that David Jeffries can land these gambles, and is a horse with no form whatsoever that's not been seen for 3 years, and yet Hills are only going to go 15-2 about it. I can't remember which race it's in. I ought to have mentioned it, so my apologies, but I have mentioned, say, on 3 or 4 occasions last year when I'm writing up the Daily Punt, how bookmakers are a little bit slow to catch on to the fact that David Jeffries clearly knows what he's doing, and he knows that Orlando Campbell as well. So Jetstream's got his conditions tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what the market makes of him. Good old card then tomorrow. I'm half tempted to go down there with a deck chair and sit down the back straight. We'll see. Good luck, everybody.